Welcome to Off Panel, Sketch.com's weekly podcast. This week, our guest is Emmy Lenox, the artist of the upcoming Plutona with Jeff Lemire and the cartoonist behind the upcoming graphic novel Tadaima. Thanks for joining the show, Emmy.
Howdy.
So, did I actually pronounce those names right? Is Tadaima the how you pronounce that?
It is. I was actually impressed that you got it on your first try.
Yes, I did it.
Maybe you researched it or something.
No. Actually, the only thing I researched in that entire thing was I Googled today, how do you pronounce Jeff Lemire's name?
Are you serious?
I've never known how. I always say...
You're going to say Lemire?
I was going to say Lemire. I always say Lemire. And then there was this website that has Jeff, pronouncing his own name, which is awesome.
So you know for sure that's the right way.
I do, and I do also know that it's because he's French-Canadian, even though he can't speak French, according to the website, which was pretty hilarious. I was like, wow, the internet really does have everything.
That's really weird.
It was really weird. I was surprised to find it. But anyways, so you're having I would say a pretty big year. You started by announcing Plutona and Tadaima at Image Expo. You launched a Patreon. Plutona #1 is about to come out. How are you holding up?
Well, that's a heavy question.
Are you surviving the experience?
I'm still here, so that's a good sign.
It is.
It's nerve-wracking for sure. This is definitely a first time I've done anything on this scale before. I usually just do my cute little autobio comics, in a corner, and that was fine. But now I got deadlines and a colorist, and it's different. It's a different world.
Yeah, I actually, that was one thing I was curious about because, I discovered your work through Emmytown. But, now you're doing like an ongoing, or is it an ongoing series or is it a limited series?
For now, it's a mini series. That's what we know.
Okay. So it's a mini series that you guys are like, you're releasing monthly-ish, I assume. And how difficult is that, like adjusting to doing like a monthly schedule?
It is so hard. It is so hard. I am still struggling. And the comic's gonna come out.
Right.
Want it to come out on time, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it is definitely a transition.
Yeah.
Just managing my time became a lot harder.
That was kind of what I always, wondered about for like transitioning to something like that is like how much is just kind of like figuring out what you're doing as you're going along, especially when it's like your first like regular project like this. Has that been one of the bigger difficulties? Is just kind of like, because you're new to this process, is it like a lot of it just you kind of figuring out things as you go along, or is like some of it you talking to like Jordy and Jeff to like, to lean on some of their experiences?
I talk to Jeff every once in a while, but my biggest foe really isn't time, as it's just my own head. Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of like, well, this is kind of my first comic on a greater scale where more people will see it thanks to Jeff and Jordy's name. Mm-hmm. And I just don't want to mess it up, and it gets hard. Sometimes I get really like frozen, Mm-hmm. But it's just a mind game, really.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better. Like anytime I start focusing so much on like a sock, I'm like, no one's gonna fucking see and care about this sock, even if I draw it perfect. So draw the sock. That's kind of my new mindset whenever I get stuck on something really trivial.
Yeah, no, I actually, that's funny because like it seems like those are the types of things that you could get really, not you personally, but artists, like when you guys are kind of just, you're in your own world and you're working at a table on your art and everything like that. Like you don't really have like immediate feedback. I guess that's one thing that's different with Emmytown is you would publish it and then people would start saying things. But with Plutona, I guess you're kind of in your own world, and you're like, oh man, this sock, it's really bringing me down. But like, I guess how do you fight through that? Like, how is that? How do you deal with I guess that kind of frozenness, so to speak?
Well, sometimes I play video games until
Mm-hmm.
I sleep. And most times I like take a break, come back and look at it, and I'm like, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You know? And and then I will admit I like to read I save some things off the internet where people said nice things, and I just read those. I'm like, see, it's people like you. And yeah, so like thank you, my supporters who's Twitter or whatever, because like it helps me, and I reread that stuff because whenever I get down, it really helps me push past it.
Yeah, well, it's like I was saying, it is pretty isolated. But I guess that is one of the nice things about social media, and like I guess theoretically, when like reviews and things like that start coming out, you're gonna, you'll get good feedback, and you'll get to hear from people about your work. And I did get a copy from Image of it, and I do have to say I really liked it, and I like not that it's a sock or something like that, but I really liked. I'm probably going to mispronounce this, and who knows? But is it Mai? How do you pronounce the?
I should have made that name different. It's Mia.
It's Mia.
Mia.
Oh, Mie. Oh, okay. So I love her shirt. I think that's hilarious. Not necessarily the studded biker jacket she steals from her friend, but like the dumb pear shirt.
A lot of people have been telling me that they like that shirt and they wish it was a real shirt they could buy. To be honest, I don't even know where the idea came from. I just liked the way pears looked.
Uh-huh.
And then I wrote dumb in it. That's how it began. It's kind of like this universe's Capsule Corp, that's like a company or something.
Uh-huh.
Pear. And she'll wear a hat later in the series that says it on the hat too.
I feel like you're being introduced to your like first Plutona merch right now. I'm pretty sure you're gonna have to make a line of like varying articles of clothing with that on there.
I want to. I really do. I'm not even just. I really want this to happen. Some talk about looking into it, so there's a chance you can own your very own dumb pear sweatshirt in the future.
Well, like lots of other Image people are doing it. I know that God, Deadly Class has a shirt. I know Wicked and Divine. I think they have a couple shirts. Anyways, so yeah, the ground has been broken. You could have your dumb pear shirt in the future.
I hope so. Would it be dumb? Because I would wear my own shirt.
Hey, you designed it. If I designed a shirt, I once upon a time, I used to play that video game Rock Band all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends and I, we had a band, and we used to play until like 3 a.m, much to the chagrin of my neighbors. And we made band tour T-shirts. And I made it, I designed it, and I'm very happy to say that I wore it all the time. So I don't think it's a bad thing to do that.
Okay, well then I'm totally gonna wear my own shirt.
Well, so as far as like Plutona is concerned, I know this has been a project you've kind of been thinking about for a while, and Jeff is somebody you've been friends with as well. But what makes this a story one? What makes the story one you wanted to tell, and also what makes Jeff such like a perfect collaborator to work with on it?
Well, when they always say, write what you want to read.
Yeah, totally.
Well, basically, Plutona would be something I would want to read, and it's not something I've seen, and so yeah. And Jeff, we both really like dark stories involving children.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a really good fit. And when I told him the initial idea, it just blossomed, and we both started to brainstorm about what was going to happen, and it was destiny.
Well, I was actually reading some of the Emmy Towns you've done this year today, and I saw the one where you guys were like working together at Emerald City Comic Con this year, and you guys were like brainstorming. You're like, "Oh, this is good stuff. Oh, yeah, this is good stuff." And it just seems like I don't know. I mean, is it pretty cool working on a project with someone that's your friend first?
I think so. I don't have a lot of experience collaborating with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not that no one wants to collaborate with me. I'm mostly a lone wolf. But with Jeff, like when it's your friend, I don't feel held back from putting in my own ideas, if that makes sense. Like I never feel like I would step on anybody's toes or have to worry about that as much.
Sure.
Or if I have any kind of criticisms. I didn't have much or anything. Jeff's pretty brilliant. We all know that, though. He knows that,
though. Yeah, no, I think that like collaboration is one of those things that people don't really ever know about because sometimes you'll get put into a position where you're working with somebody that you don't know so well, but I don't know. I feel like it seems like it'd be more advantageous just because, like you're saying, you can give feedback and you're comfortable enough to do so. And in knowing that Jeff won't be like, no dumb pear shirt. I'm out on the dumb pear shirt.
Was a shirt with a hockey puck?
What about it?
Hey, was another shirt idea, but I don't think he liked it. It was for in honor of him. I was like, I could draw a shirt with a hockey puck, and I'll have a smiley face on it, and then it'll say "puck" underneath, kind of like a play on the bad word. And then Jeff just looked at me and shook his head. I was like, all right, we don't have to do that. Anyway,
I'm flexible in the puck idea. That's hilarious. I feel like I also like that idea. So apparently, you and I are more simpatico when it comes to all apparel decisions. But yeah, I mean, it seems like I guess like you said, you don't have a lot of experience with collaborating with people due to your lone wolf nature. But it is. I don't know. I guess I just feel like when when you're creating something, it seems like comfort is important. And do you find that to be the case for you? Like when you're working on like something like Emmy Town or even Tadaima and things like that, do you feel like, I guess, talking about your own life, I mean, is that something you're comfortable with at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with it, and I would say comfort is a big deal, but also trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think is huge because like he trusts me to draw the pages or lay them out the way how I see it. I would imagine some writers won't leave as much wiggle room. How would I know? I don't know. I think maybe there must be some writers out there like that. But yeah, with comics, when there's a writer and an artist, it's so important to like let each other breathe and be creative on your own terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, so you said that you guys both like stories about like dark stories about young kids and everything like that. Where does that come from? Did you like grow up on like Stand By Me and things like that, or like the Goonies?
I know initially that statement sounds really creepy, but not in that kind of sense at all. But I think it's just about like children's innocence and how it can just be affected so much easier than when you're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And how much things are more dramatic when you're a kid. And like watching movies like Stand By Me or Mean Creek, which is also a big influence, where kids are going through such dark situations. I don't know, I love it. And I know Jeff loves that stuff too. Coming of age kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I actually, that was one of the things that I really, really loved about the first issue. It was just like, I don't know, I felt like all the kids felt like, like they were recognizable and they were all different, but they all felt like real. They all felt like they had a real identity. And because this idea came from you, right?
The original idea basically being that a group of kids find a dead superhero in the woods. It's basically just a skeleton of what became Plutona.
Well, I was just curious as far as like the, once you guys got into the point where you started, you'd agreed that you're going to do this together and you started developing the idea. like how closely did you guys collaborate in like kind of building out the cast and like their identities and things like that?
Well, gee, it's hard for me to remember. Because we basically thought up most of the story at San Diego last year when we just sat down for coffee and we're like, all right, this is it. And I know a lot of the names were because of friends and family. And for me, Mia and her brother Mike is kind of loosely based on like me and my own brother.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of really cheesy to say, but for me, I feel like the characters just sort of became who they are on by themselves. Like they showed us who they are. Does that make sense? It sounds so corny.
No. It totally makes sense because I don't know. I mean, whenever you're working on anything, it's like I don't know. I don't think you should ever go into anything or knowing 100% the way something's going to go. So I guess in the sense that it just you started working on it and then they kind of developed in an organic way. It makes sense to me.
Oh, okay, good. That then like that. I mean, we didn't try to pigeonhole or put any of these kids in like a specific stereotype of box or anything.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted them to be as real as they can be,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time showing kind of different kinds of kids with different backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely identified more with the Cape spotting kid. Even though, like, the thing I really like about the cast, and this is a combination of both of you guys, but like, like the Cape spotting kid, he's like the kind of like the nerdy type, I guess. But at the same time, he has his own strengths and everything, and it makes him feel more real because, like, a lot of times you'll deal with archetypes and the archetype is that the nerdy kid is going to be like a little bit more quiet and like reserved. I guess I'm thinking like the Breakfast Club and Anthony Michael Hall, except for like eventually they'll like break out and like become their own person. And it seems like I don't know. As I was reading it, I felt like you could tell that you and Jeff were both really into the project. Like you guys were both really feeling it. Would you say that's like a fair statement? Like this is something you guys are strongly feeling as creators?
Yes, I think that's a good statement. I can't speak for Jeff, but I assume he feels the same.
You hope so.
No, I mean I does. But for me, it's like one of my babies.
Mm-hmm.
I love this project so much, and I'm really excited about it. I can't wait till you guys read the rest. I gotta drop first, so there's that, but it's coming.
I not to completely diverge into a different tangent, but I always feel like it's got to be pretty weird as like a person who's like, you're talking about a comic that hasn't even really come out yet, and you're like, oh man, this is like, how do I talk about this without like spoiling everything or like talking about stuff that I haven't even done yet, like drawing the rest of the comic and everything. It not to put you on the spot or anything, but that's got to be a little strange, right?
A little weird. I mean, to me, it's more like I'm making promises that I haven't delivered yet.
Right.
But I know I'm going to deliver them. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like until it's done, it's still like kind of this thing that's in your mind, and
it's not like a physical existing thing yet, but it will be.
Exactly. Well, and I know that like Tadaima is as far as projects go something that I mean it's is it like would you call it another diary comic?
Yeah. It's but it's in a different fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's different but the same. I mean, this is more focused on one trip, and it's expanded through only 7 days, but will be a full book, so it's not a page every day.
Right.
But it is still very much all about me, and so yeah. I mean, it's still like a diary.
Right.
It's drawn the same kind of manner as Emmy Town without really panels and stuff, but in watercolor.
Mm-hmm. As far as that book's concerned, though, I mean, I guess so. Actually, to start with, would you mind like kind of just walking through like the 10,000-foot view, like what Tadaima is about?
Oh yeah, sure. Tadaima, it means I'm home in Japanese, is basically covering a trip I took with my mother to Japan in 2013, I think it was. Doesn't matter when it was, but it happened not too long ago. And basically, I hadn't been back to Japan for over 10 years. And in that 10-year span, both of my grandparents had passed away. And I've always felt a lot of guilt about not going back. And so my mother and I went back to renew, in lack of just for a quick way of saying it, like prayers or something, it's a Buddhist thing, at their tomb. So it would be the first time I went back with both my grandparents gone, and also post the tsunami, because they lived in the Fukushima prefecture.
Oh, wow.
It's not really close to the coast, so they weren't affected as much, but they were still little things. So what I was excited with Tadaima is that it's a book about family and being kind of in a place that's familiar, but you're not feeling like you belong. And also like little things like me and my mother spending 7 days in a row together, which hasn't happened since I moved out of the house. And then, just kind of the country and what I saw that was still around because of the nuclear disaster and the earthquake.
Yeah.
Oh, and having a tattoo there was also very exciting.
Oh, you got a tattoo there?
I feel like I shamed my family. So there's a lot of good material to go over.
It's very fertile grounds.
Tattoo there, but I had one when I went there.
Oh.
On my arm. And it wasn't exactly a good thing.
I've been to Japan once in my life, and I actually was there like 3 weeks after the earthquake.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it was a very, very, it was an incredible experience just because the country is so amazing. But it was an interesting time to be there, and I have to imagine because Fukushima is still figuring things out. I think even like now 4 years later after it. And I don't know. I mean, it has to have been an interesting time to have been in the country, even excluding everything else that was going on with you personally.
Mm-hmm. Well, the small things that I noticed really was, like, for instance, we had to drive to the city of Fukushima, the Fukushima prefecture. Yeah, it's complicated, and and it's where my grandparents' tomb is, and at the grave site, a lot of graves were toppled over. Sorry, this cops.
I did.
A lot of graves were toppled over from the earthquake, and the people couldn't afford to fix it. It was really sad to see.
Yeah,
all these destroyed graves, and they also weren't allowed to grow rice at the time in that area because of the radiation. So there's a lot of little things.
Yeah.
And in the town I was staying at, they actually had what is it? Like meters that show the readings of the radioactivity in the area. So that was kind of freaky. So like weird stuff like that to them was kind of every day at that point. And to me, like, whoa, a radiation meter, that's not something I see every day.
Yeah, and that's one of the strange things too, is just like how it's amazing to think that you could get adjusted to something like that. Like it seems like if you were just walking around Portland with like a radiation meter or something like that, it's just kind of, I guess, hard to visualize getting used to that. But I guess life carries on, and it like I said, I mean, it had been a very interesting time to be there, just even if it is just like those small differences.
Yeah, even there was like a place I went, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but they didn't have any garbage cans anywhere. And I asked my mom, like, why isn't there any garbage cans? This is ridiculous. It's a highly tourist-filled area. And she told me, now I don't know if it's true, but this is what she told me, that they got rid of it post 9/11 because of terrorists. Like, they were scared of terrorist attacks. So there's a lot of, like, other stuff. There's just, like, weird stuff you don't ever think about when you're here, and then you go over there. I don't know, like,
that is
culture shock.
Yeah, that is really strange. Like, if they don't have garbage cans, like that is like the cleanest country I've ever been in my life, bar none. And like, it's hard to imagine them not having garbage cans, but I'm sure they found a way. Um,
Sure. I mean, it wasn't just only this one specific area that was very popular for shopping
sure.
in Tokyo.
Oh, what area was it? Just curious.
I'm trying to think of it at the top of my head. I'm having so much trouble.
It's okay. No worries.
Okay.
But you had spent time in Japan when you were younger, right?
Yeah, I think I've been there a total of 8 times
Mm-hmm.
prior. There was a time in my life where it seemed like I went like every year for several years to visit my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very familiar with the areas that we always end up going to because it's the areas my family lives.
Right. But I mean, I have to imagine, one of the stranger things would be going to places you've been a lot when you were much younger, like going there like 10 years later. I mean, just like that change. I don't know. I just, it seems like, I mean, I guess I should just wait for the book, but it just seems like there's a lot of really, interesting stuff for you as a cartoonist. But, so when you were on that trip, were you actively thinking that you were going to do something with that? Like you were going to make that, a comic, or was that just something you were just doing your typical diary comics as you were traveling? You're like, this is more, this is important.
Yeah, it's more like the latter.
Yeah.
I thought I kept notes every day of like the things that I did, like I would do for a regular Emmytown page.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, like after the whole trip, I was like, this could be something way more than just like a 3-page Emmytown special. Like first of all, there's no way I could cram that all.
Right.
And there's so much depth and emotion that happened that like I have to realize that's what I wanted to do to Daima.
Mm-hmm. Well, so and how did you originally bring that? Like, did you start working on it before you brought it to Image, or was that something you went to somebody at Image and had a conversation, and then once they're like, oh yeah, we're totally into that, like, is that the route you went, or like how did that happen?
The second thing. You're on top of it. You're getting them all right.
I'm very good at guessing things. It's one of my skill set.
Well, I think I talked to Eric Stevenson about it,
mm-hmm.
and I was like selling him on like the whole family stuff and being out of place in the Buddhist ceremony, like earthquake and the tsunami and the yakuza and the tattoo, like all that stuff.
What?
And that sounds like it'd be really interesting. Yeah, go for it. And I'm like, all right. And then I started to compile all the notes and working it out.
And you're like, oh God, what have I got myself into?
No, I thought that after I started to watercolor it.
Well, I was curious about that because you've never done watercolor for your comic work before. How did you decide to go that route with this?
I don't know why I thought that would be a good idea. I knew I wanted to make it really special.
Yeah.
And watercolor is just my choice way of coloring things.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to watercolor. And yeah, it takes a while. Watercolor.
Yeah, I have to imagine that would be like if you were trying to schedule something, that would be kind of tough to do because you have watercolored in the past, but you've never watercolored an entire graphic novel before. And I imagine that there's like things that you don't expect coming up involving like processes that you're normally used to. Like, I don't know, like how do you transition that into files? Like
scanning is what really.
Oh God.
Because that's really hard. First of all, to scan watercolors good, and then my scanner went kaput.
Oh no!
More like Apple decided to release a new OS system, or that was redundant. OS.
Uh-huh.
and the old crappy scanner that worked fine. It was cheap. They didn't make a driver for it, and they still haven't made a driver.
Oh man!
So I had to get a new scanner. And it scans everything super different. So that was trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, I was going to scan everything over again. And now I kind of think I might have to draw everything again.
No.
Because it went on the back burner because of Futona.
Uh-huh.
It has a set schedule. And now that I look at the old Tadaima pages, I'm like, I could draw better than that now.
Mm-hmm.
I have better ideas to execute this,
Mm-hmm.
I should just do it over. Plus, I have this new scanner. At least everything will look uniform this way.
Yeah, yeah, and like I read this somewhere once, and apparently, allegedly, I actually brought this up in a podcast before, but I think Pixar supposedly make like they don't make a movie twice, but they kind of like storyboard it twice because the first time like is them kind of figuring it out, and then the second time is when they really get it right. Maybe that's the Emmy Lennox method.
I know it's like the long method, but whatever works.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually, I just jump into things. I don't usually take too much time thumbnailing. My thumbnails are usually not very detailed. But then when I jump into it and I drew out these Tadaima pages, I'm like, this is no. We need to figure out something else. And so I got to start over. Hopefully, the second time's the charm.
Yeah,
Not the third time, like the general rule.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think for your sanity and your schedule, it'd probably be preferable to be the second time. Well, I guess that's one thing I'm curious about is, for like when you're planning out an entire graphic novel like that, and you're kind of going from all these copious notes and things. When you're planning out the visuals, do you actually lay out the entire book, like just kind of the roughs of what you're thinking, or I don't know. I guess what's your process for that? I've never really heard that for a graphic novel before.
I want to start out by saying I'm probably not the norm. I feel like I work very different with everything. I think it's just the way my brain is wired. But I kind of thumbnail it and write it as I go along. And a lot of times I get stuck with certain things because I think like, oh, this doesn't look like, like a normal graphic novel you see on, out in the world. But then whatever I start thinking, I have to like shut myself up because I have to do what I'm comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I'm comfortable with. I don't know. I also feel that way with Platono a lot too, like whenever I start comparing myself with other artists and the way they execute a story, and I'm not doing it the same. Hopefully that doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. To like let go of that because that's what, freezes me up. And just like, you gotta just go with your own flow. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do know what you're saying. I also know the feeling of getting in your head. Like pretty much anytime I write anything, I have like a mini existential crisis. And that's not good. But I take it you're the same way.
Yeah, except it's like every day. Whenever I sit down to start working, I'll be like, oh no. What am I doing?
Why am I doing this to myself?
Why am I on Earth? Am I not? Should I be a dentist? What am I doing?
Oh, well, I, as a person who really enjoys your work, I think you're doing the right thing. But I think that I don't know. It's just you're actually still you've been doing comics for a while, but this is. I guess your really big first. I'm not your first big project. Well, it's your biggest project for sure.
I would say it is.
Yeah.
Because the audience is wider because of Jeff, which I'm thankful for. It puts me more on the map than Emmytown. Because Emmytown was kind of small. Like no one knew who I am. You know what I mean?
Right. No.
People know who Jeff is, and people know who Jordy is. And then through that, they'll be like, "Who's this girl? What's her deal?" Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure. So yeah, it is a big project.
Well, so like you're used to for Emmytown, I guess you don't full color it, but like in Tadaima you're doing your watercolors and everything, but you're working with Jordy for Plutona. What is like what is so I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. She's obviously a total badass, and she's like an Eisner winner and things like that. But what do you think about her coloring brings out the best in your work in Plutona?
I don't know. It makes me look like I'm a better drawer. So that's good. And she really helps bring out the mood, especially at the end with the forest, which I really loved a lot. And I love her use of texture. I don't know how to do any of that on the computer. The computer is a foreign. Oh, sorry. That's my text tone. It's a Moogle from Final Fantasy. Let me put that on mute.
That was. I did. Was he saying Kupo?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's adorable.
It goes Kupo, Kupo.
I love Moogles. Moogles are amazing.
Me too.
See, you just need once you're done with all this stuff, you have to somehow convince somebody to do Final Fantasy comics in America.
You know, my next project, I'm highly thinking of doing something that's influenced by Final Fantasy.
That I would be
so
first.
Don't you worry. It might come.
I would be first in line for that. So you're a big Final Fantasy fan, obviously, because you have a Moogle ringtone. But like
you have Google stress ball.
What? I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Holding it. Well, I got it at Comic-Con just this past couple months ago. Last month? 2 months ago. Wait, what's month? It's August. Last month.
My dream commission that I want to get an artist to do is I want to get Setzer's airship from Final Fantasy VI. Like I want somebody to do like a big version of that, because that was like one of the weird things about the Final Fantasy games for me is they actually made me really, really love airships because of like Cecil and the Red Wings and like Setzer's like flying casino thing and stuff like that.
Did you ever see Zach Gorman's drawing of the airship with everybody on board?
No.
Oh my god. All right, well, I'll have to send you the link to it.
Oh my god. That makes me very excited.
It's really good.
Anyways, but yeah, no, I would be all about the Final Fantasy inspired comics from Emmy Lenox. But you know, so you did Emmy Town. How long did you do? You're still doing Emmy Town, but when did you start Emmy Town?
Officially or unofficially?
Let's go with both.
Unofficially, I started in 2008, and that unofficially meaning me starting a daily sketch diary. None of that's online. Well, some of it's coming up in bulk, like pieces on the Patreon, only if you're a patron, because I am embarrassed by those really old pages. Never be published or put on the general internet. But unofficially, I guess, would be kind of like the start of the book, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Which is what, later in 09, late 09? And that's basically when I just decided to start a blogger and put it on the internet.
Well, one thing I've always been curious, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. Like, I think the fact that, you know, you as a cartoonist can start a diary comic and you can start publishing things online. And, you know, like, I'm not saying that you had like millions and millions upon millions of like adoring readers and things like that, but you know, it had to like, isn't that kind of that's how you met like Eric Stevenson and like started, you know, producing comics, like releasing Emmy Town itself at Image and stuff. Like that's how you've made your career, is by making comics. And like, I guess for you as a cartoonist, how cool is it to have like tools like that available to like get your work out there?
Pretty good, I guess. I can't imagine. It's, you know, with a lot of things in life these days, with technology, etc., it's kind of hard to imagine what it was like without it now. You know what I mean? Oh,
absolutely.
Like before there was internet or a way to share your art with the world in one click, you know?
Yeah. No, I always think of this, like Louis C.K. had like this bit that he did. I think he did on like Conan or something like that, where he was talking about how this guy was getting really upset on his flight that he had, where like the in-flight internet wasn't working, and he was just like raging because, you know, he didn't have his internet. And Louis C.K. was talking about, he's like, you're in a flying tube that's rocketing from one side of the planet to another, and you have like this magical connection that gives you like the ability to watch videos on your flight, and you're upset about the fact it doesn't work for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, it always makes me, whenever I think about like how I'm yelling at my cable modem or something like that for not working, I always think about that to kind of recontextualize things, because I don't know, the internet is an amazing thing, and like it really can, like, for cartoonists like you or like somebody. I don't know if you know who Jake Wyatt is, but
I love him.
yeah, he's so great. His stuff is amazing, and he's a super nice guy. And I don't know. I mean, like talking with him about that stuff, it's like the internet has literally changed his life, and that's amazing.
You know, I sit here often and I think, and this is, I work alone in my own apartment, so I have a lot of weird thoughts. I choose this. I like to be alone. Wouldn't want to be in a studio. But the other day I was thinking, aside from technology, do you ever wonder, like, what it was like for the first guy to invent the alphabet,
Oh.
Like, how do you even start? You know what I mean?
How do you explain it to somebody even? Like, all right, so
A is or
exactly, the concept is completely foreign. I actually typically think about the first person who invented the sandwich, and like how that person is an underrated genius. But the alphabet, yeah, that's that would be like they probably thought he was like a wizard or something like that.
well, you have to think it was started with symbols and stuff, I think, right?
Right.
Still
Yeah.
gotta be like, well, how did it get to the freaking alphabet? And someone had to do it. It's not like it just appeared before you.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Yeah.
guy or girl was like, all right, guys, we are gonna make an alphabet.
And then, do you think somebody raised their hand? They're like, "What's that?"
A is the first letter to the word alphabet.
Oh God, that is amazing. That would be. Yeah, I'm glad that things have been invented before me, because I don't know if I would be cut from the cloth needed to invent the alphabet or things like that.
Oh no, I'm definitely a follower.
I'm a follower with you, Emmy.
Let them do all the hard work.
Exactly, that's exhausting.
We'll just enjoy the fruits of their labor.
like the internet and the alphabet.
Yeah, exactly. The internet and the alphabet are the same.
Basically, they sound roughly similar. They're like in the vicinity of each other. But so in your 6 years officially, 7 years unofficially of Emmytown, what did that teach you about creating comics, and has that experience carried over to kind of how you're working on Plutona and Tadaima, or are you just like completely reinventing the wheel on this?
I guess the big lesson I learned from Emmytown that I carry over to Plutona is to not worry about what other people think. No offense, guys.
Except for the people who are nice on Twitter.
Well, I mean, this is just in regards of like how I draw and stuff.
Right.
And I would always worry, like, well, I hope people like it. And with Emmytown, that's what I loved about Emmytown, is that I didn't have to care as much because it was always for me, really. Because it's me documenting my time so I can remember it. And if you don't like it, then you don't like it, and that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
But with Plutona, I'm like, I have this whole different audience now, Hopefully some Emmytown people will frolic this way too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I hope I can appease this new audience. But the thing is I can't be anybody else but me. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself.
Right.
Like, I can't be Jake Wyatt, right? I can't be Jamie McKelvey or other people. I can't be Jeff Lemire. Only be me. And draw the way I draw.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is a really good fit for the book, which is, makes sense because it was, a concept you worked on and developed with Jeff. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's all anybody can hope for when you're working on a comic or on anything is you can just, be you. And I think that, it's cool seeing your work in, like the more narrative driven element like that, because I'm used to seeing an Emmytown, and like not that you don't work into like an overall narrative of your life, but it's cool for me seeing like that evolution, I guess, the evolution of Emmy Lenox.
Oh, thank you. It sounds like I'm Dragon Ball Z or Saiyan or something. Or like that one part where he has the really long hair.
I have to admit, I've never watched Dragon Ball Z. I do know what you're saying as far as Super Saiyan.
There were so many different levels of Super Saiyan. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, I always felt like I have a narrative voice that no one ever got to see because I've never really put anything out. So this is my chance to show people and I can't mess it up.
I feel like you need to run outside with like the Rocky theme playing now. Like you need to really work off of this positive energy you have going, and you need to crush it, Emmy.
Oh, well, as we're talking, I am working on Plutona.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the great circle.
We brought it full circle. Well, so one other thing that I'm really like, there's a lot of things I'm amazed about. Apparently, sandwiches, the alphabet, the internet, everything. But I'm amazed by the fact that you're still doing MA Town pages. You're working on Plutona. You're working on Tadaima, and you have your life. Like, how tough is that? How tough is it to balance all of that? I guess.
Lucky for me, the older I get, the less social time I need to be happy.
I would high five you right now if I was next to you.
Do you feel the same way?
Totally.
Because I work at the bar once a week, so I kind of get my social stuff out of the way. My friend Joe lives down the hall if I ever wanted to say hi. For the most part, I'm just home. And Emmy-town doesn't always happen as frequent as if you're on Patreon, you might have noticed. There's not a lot of new stuff right now because of Plutona. Tadaima is on the back burner until this is done, and then I'll take a little break and then start working on Tadaima. So it's not like I'm working on all these things at once. So I'm not a superhero. Or I know people who can work on a lot of projects at once, but I feel like I'm kind of weak, and my mind cannot handle that.
Yeah, I can't even read a book and like another book at the same time. So I totally understand. Like I'm more the type of person who focuses on one thing. And I'm always amazed when like I think near as I can, do you know Mike Norton?
I've heard of his name, but I can't say I've met him in person.
Near as I can tell, he's drawing 3 comics right now, and I don't know how. And yeah, like how do you like? I think at that point, like I just assume that a person just stops sleeping. But I'm sure it's much more easy to explain because there's like schedules that he's worked out and things like that. But like him doing that, or like Fiona Staples doing Archie and Saga at the same time, I'm just like, you people are wizards. I don't understand.
I feel they make me feel like a bum. It's like one is enough, and it's not even ongoing right now. It's just a mini series. But I feel lucky enough that with my bar job and whatever, I make enough money to survive, so I don't really have to take new projects unless I want to do them. And my happiness is first and foremost the most important thing. And if I'm overworked, I won't be happy.
No, yeah, that would not be a good thing.
So careful. I have to turn down a lot of jobs, but it's because happiness is more important to me than getting into a dark place of like, I can't do it. I am so horrible.
Oh, you're not. Well. So I actually. You have a job. You work in a bar, and it's one day a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that more like is that just because you're like kind of planned social time, or is that like an income thing, or why do you maintain that while you have the other gigs going on?
It's a little both. Obviously, talking money, Plutona and stuff. They don't, with Image, a lot of it pays back end.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the time, some people get an advance, but you still have to wait a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like the cushion.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the people at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Also. And every once in a while, if I get in a pinch, I do need that money. So
right.
But with Patreon, really helps a lot. Thanks, guys. Plus, working at the bar, I get to be on their softball team. And by the way, we beat the first game of the playoffs. So that's also exciting.
Nice. That's awesome. My kickball team won our championship this year, which was like my big prideful moment of the summer.
I know it doesn't seem like much to other people, but it means so much to you and your team.
Yeah, I got a freaking plaque. I can't believe it.
Freaking, you got something to show for it.
Yeah. I haven't had like a trophy or anything since I was a kid.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, so the Patreon, that was I guess like How did you decide that you wanted to launch a Patreon for like Emmy-town and your work beyond that?
Um, it was mostly because it's so easy to not do Emmy-town.
So it's kind
And
of a motivator?
I like drawing Emmy-town. And sometimes I'm like, why? I need to do this again. So yeah, it's a motivator. And also, like, people are paying me money. I need to do this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully, once there's enough pages, hopefully there'll be a volume 3 of Emmy-town.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to continue documenting my life. Yeah, it's just so easy to get involved with the other big projects that I forget about Emmy-town.
So are you like are you actively kind of like taking notes or doing things like that for the days you've missed, or is it just like you've just been too busy to get to that stuff for Emmy-town?
Well, the new Emmy-town is not daily, obviously, anymore.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's kind of, I like how each volume of Emmy-town is a different experiment in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first one, I literally drew a page a day. The second one, I drew a year after it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, this third one would be more of just random vignettes that aren't daily. So it's like things I really want to talk about. Some of them were about my past, and some of them are about trips. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's more focused. Like each page is more focused on a thing and not a.
Yeah, because you did Emerald City, and then you did like a June recap and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like I don't. I always felt like if in theory I somehow developed the ability to draw, and I decided to have a diary comic of my own, I feel like. Did you ever feel like you had pressure to like go and do cool stuff or anything like that? Does that sound weird? I don't know.
No, because again, that's the thing. I have to remind myself that it's for me and not for other people.
That's true.
So like, I would feel pressure to go do cool stuff if I felt like I needed to do that so that people would be interested in my comic.
Mm-hmm.
But with Emmy-town, that's why I loved it so much. And working on it, it was the most carefree thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit that if anything, it made me want to do other stuff because I think it would be fun to draw. Like just thinking about drawing my face on a roller coaster ride, that kind of thing, like that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to do it though. I hate haunted houses, like fake ones, on Halloween.
Yeah, those I actually they scare me. So, which is funny because like most things don't scare me, but for some reason haunted houses still do as an adult.
Fake haunted houses.
Like the faker they are. If it was real things that were happening, I'd be like, whatever. Fake ones, that's where it's at.
I pushed a guy. They grabbed me, and I was like, "What? Are you even allowed to do that?" And I shoved him, and he was like, "Whoa, chill!" Like he broke character. And they escorted me out. There's like a way you can leave early.
Wow, they just have like random doors for the people who attack the actors.
People who freak out with their shit. That's when I decided I should never be allowed in another. Because I don't want to do that to him, but it's like that reaction.
Well, if you get grabbed, I can't believe he grabbed. I feel like that's against the haunted house rules.
Yeah, you're like, what? You're already on edge. What do they expect?
When I was a kid in like a haunted house that was in this mall up here in Alaska, I was going through and I was dressed as a ninja, and this guy jumped out, and like my immediate response was to take out my sword and hit him. And I actually also got escorted out, but I still feel like that was like an adequate response. I'm like, he scared the hell out of me. What am I supposed to do? I'm dressed as a ninja.
You gotta wonder what shit those people go through working at haunted houses. We're like the least of the things that have happened. I bet like people full out go ape shit.
I feel like there needs to be a documentary on this.
There should be a documentary on this.
I would watch the documentary on the real story behind the fake haunted houses. So speaking of things, and this is actually my last question for you, Emmy, but speaking of things that are horrifying, I feel like this would be, I don't know what I would do, but I'm curious as to what you do. What was the Image Expo experience like?
Oh, wow. Well, it was horrifying. I feel like my situation stood alone because, well, okay, first of all, I was nervous, of course, to go get on stage, right? I mean, who
Mhm.
would be in front of all these people, especially when you're nobody and you're getting up there when people are waiting to see, like Brian K. Vaughan or whatever, right? But you go up there and then you stand there in silence, and Eric Stevenson looks at you and he goes, "Hey," and I was like, "Hi." Nothing was planned, by the way. He told me that we'll just go right into it. I'm like, "All right, all right." So we're sitting, and he was like, "How you doing?" And I was like, I'm fine. So what have you been up to these days?" And I was like, well, that's kind of a broad question. Like, what do you mean?
I had a coffee this morning.
Finally, he was like, "Well, tell us about what you're working on." I'm like, "Well, like that whole time, it was the most awkward, horrifying experience because I thought he would just jump right in, like, "All right, Emmy, tell us about what you're working on." But he had all these weird questions.
You're like, are we just having a conversation right now, or am I supposed to be talking about my comic book?
And then, well, when he said, like, "What are you up to these days?" In my head, I'm like, "Well, does he mean like how am I doing, or is, what's the comics?" So I froze. What am I up to? What I'm working on with comics? They're like, well, like I'm hanging out in San Francisco.
The
I
weather's nice.
eat pizza the other day. And,
I actually always have wondered about that because it's like I mean I'm sure that there's like the people who go out there and they're like the natural showmen and do like the
Kieran Gillen had a freaking speech.
like a written speech or like he memorized it.
He was practicing it.
Oh my god.
I don't know if I'm allowed to tell people, but it's out now. He would practice it alone in the hallway before he went on stage. And I was like, "Oh shit! Should I have had a speech prepared?"
Well, that would have been really awkward though, because if like Eric Stevenson's like, "So what have you been up to lately?" and then you just drop into a speech.
I like hold my hand up to silence Eric. Like, hold on.
It's speech time, Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I guess like I would have expected there to be like cues of some sort, or like some sort of like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and then you do that. And you're like, got it, nailed it, I got this. But that is much more hilarious that it was like that. Well, Emmy, that's actually all I have for you. But thank you so much for everything and for sharing your trauma of haunted house experiences and Image Expo and everything about Plutona and Tadaima. I'm very excited for everything. And like I said, thanks for coming on.
I hope I didn't overshare. I tend to ramble.
No, it was great. Thanks for listening to Off Panel from Sketch.com. You can find this week's guest, Emmy Lennox, at emmylennox.blogspot.com, on Twitter at emmybot, and in the upcoming Image Comics title, Plutona, with Jeff Lemire. You can read more from Sketched at Sketched, that's SKTCHD.com. Follow us on Twitter at SketchedComic, and like us on Facebook at /Sketched. Thanks for listening, and tune in for another episode next week.